Hey, good morning, everybody. It's another Wednesday. It's time for an episode of Come On Ref. You know what it is? I'm your host. I'm Chad Bryan. I got all my friends here with me again. Say hi, everybody.
What's good?
Hello.
Hello.
All right. I hope we have a great show for you today. Maybe we'll stay on air this week. Maybe we got taken down last week, but we're back. We made it back. So here we are. We're going to talk about some weird stuff's going on in the NBA, specifically in Philadelphia. I don't know what's happening there. I want to get to the NFL a little bit because it's almost time. I mean, it's almost time to ramp up. We really didn't think about it. We got to talk about college football a little bit too, because we really only have one more weekend without college football, you guys.
I think so, right?
That's pretty exciting, right? We'll get into stuff that's going on with Jim Harbaugh and I'm sorry, Jackson. What's that?
Week 0 next
Week
week.
0, week -1, man. But yeah, we got to get into stuff with some weird stuff's going on with the NCAA and Jim Harbaugh. We'll talk about the preseason AP poll. We'll talk about some of our picks for the playoffs, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But first, we've got some sports headlines. There's some stuff going on in the sports world we got to talk about, right? The Women's World Cup news, right? There's the final is set. Spain, England. Am I correct?
Yes.
Spain,
Yes.
England, Sunday at 6 a.m. That final. Is anybody waking up, staying up? What are you guys going to do to watch this?
No, not on the
I
weekend.
will
No,
not.
not on the weekend. No way.
I will be catching some Z's.
My class reunion, my 30th year class reunion Saturday night. Highly doubt I'll be up Sunday morning to watch soccer.
Okay, we'll get the address in the show notes. We'll all crash Jackson's class reunion instead. How about that? Yeah, that's what we'll do. But yeah, Sunday at 6, Spain will take on England. I'm not sure how much interest there is. We probably feel a little bitter that our girls got knocked out a little bit early. It is what it is, man. I'll probably catch the highlights. I don't know if I'll stay up and watch the game or wake up that early. I have kids, man. I have to get all the sleep I can get. But we will see what happens. And looks like I lost everybody, so we're going to hold the show down for a couple minutes here until they come back. But yeah, we got the Michael Oher lawsuit. That's happening too. I don't know if you guys heard about that. Michael Oher has filed a lawsuit essentially against the Toohey family regarding the film The Blind Side from 2009. Allegedly, he states he was entered into a conservatorship as opposed to being legally adopted by the family. Just something to keep an eye on. That was one of my favorite movies, man. One of my favorite sports movies. And I just want to kind of keep an eye on that situation and see, what happens with that.
I did have a developing on that. Allegedly, the family has responded, and they're saying that Michael Oher actually tried to extort $15 million before he went public with the lawsuit and all that. So there's way more to the story that's probably going to come out.
Yeah.
But it's looking like the family, they're not the bad guys that they were perceived to be when all this started.
It's still just a sad situation all around because it seemed like such a great story in the movie. It was portrayed as such a great story, and now it's like either way, no matter who's the bad guy here, it's just sad.
It just makes the movie less meaningful, I should say.
Yeah.
It makes the movie unwatchable.
Some people were, I get that. Yeah, because someone got taken advantage of, and I think that's a tough look. And people were online last night saying Sandra Bullock should give back, she won awards for that she should give back those awards. And I don't know about that. I mean, she's still.
This has nothing to do with
nothing to do with her. Yeah, she's not Leanne Toohey. She didn't do that.
Exactly. She's an actress. She played a role. You know what I mean? She did her job.
That's exactly it.
She has nothing to do with this. I do find it interesting though that Ole Miss would tell a kid, an 18-year-old, depending how you look at a kid, young adult, whatever, he's 18 and they're saying, we're not going to accept you unless you have a family. I didn't know that's how that worked. You can't be an orphan and go to college.
It just so happens that people that adopted him are Ole Miss alums that are very wealthy. So
yeah,
I don't know, Jackson. I'm not sure on that, on the legalities or the rules of that part. I know the NCAA has some really, really funny rules, and we'll break that down a little bit later when we talk about the Jim Harbaugh thing. We can get into that later, but. There are some funny NCAA rules, but yeah, I something to keep an eye on. Like I said, that was one of my favorite sports movies, man.
Mine too.
It's such a feel-good movie, and you hate to see it go this way, but we'll keep an eye on how that progresses over time, and hopefully they can reach an agreement of some kind.
Right.
But I think we want to get right into just some NBA stuff first. I know it's almost football season, but what's happening in Philadelphia right now is just maybe too wild to not talk about. You guys, think Daryl Morey is going to be on James Harden's Christmas card list. Do you?
No,
I don't think so.
no.
What happened here? I mean, what's going on? Does anybody know the ins and outs? What happened here?
They had a relationship at one point. There was a relationship back when they were both in, I think it was Houston.
Mm-hmm.
They had a relationship, and then they came to Philly. I mean, how are you going to feel if the boss promises you $200 million and then comes back and it's like, never mind? You're probably going to have choice with him as well. You're going to find him a liar as well. My prediction for all of this, Harden's going to put the facts back on. He's obviously going to not show up for him. And he's probably going to have, what's the word, team decision. I mean, Joel Embiid's already showing how he feels based upon what Harden said. There's a lot more going on in Philadelphia right now.
And let's actually take a look at that Harden quote. I want to bring that up. I think it's important to see exactly what he said about Daryl Morey. Listen, he pulled no punches here. I mean, he got right to the point. He said, and I quote here, "Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of." And I left a space in there for a dramatic pause on purpose because he actually went back. I mean, this was at a live event with a microphone in his hand. He said, "Let me say that again," and repeated, "Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of." Like, is it not hard to come back from this?
Oh no, yeah, he's not.
Yeah, no, he's not.
Yeah, no, there's no chance.
He's going to take the $392,000 fine for every.
Why? I'm sorry, but why did he opt into his deal then? If that's how he felt about it, did Daryl Morey promise him that he was going to be traded or something? Like, what happened there? Why would he opt into a deal if he did not trust the general manager? That was less than a month, like 2 months ago. That he opted into his deal.
Clearly,
what happened in a month or two? Yeah.
Yes.
Like Nick said, like either Daryl Morey promised him he was going to get traded, or like promised he was going to sign like an extension or something like that, and Morey probably told him like, hey, like, you know, it's not going to happen. Like, you're stuck here. And then Harden's probably like, well, you know, like, you're a liar. I'm leaving. See ya.
Or the trust probably wasn't breached at that point in time.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is 3 times in less than 3 years now that James Harden has demanded a trade.
Exactly.
And you're making $45 million a year to play basketball, and you refuse to even show. Like, he refused to show up to Houston. He refused to show up to Brooklyn. Like,
he refused to show up in the playoffs.
Refused to show up in the playoffs. Yeah.
Well,
I'm sorry. I just can't. I can't.
I have a question.
As I see.
Can Nick hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I want to know. Do you think Harden's played his last game for the Sixers?
Oh, undoubtedly. It does not sound like he's going to play for Daryl Morey. It just seems like that relationship is a burnt bridge at this point, and it isn't going to happen.
So
it feels like it. And Nick, something you said, the third time in less than 3 years he's demanded a trade. It leads me to this question. Listen, is everybody else the problem, or is it James Harden?
He's had good teammates. It's not like he's not playing with, like, he's played with Joel Embiid, Kevin Durant, not James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and then in Houston, Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook. Like, he's had really good teammates.
He even had Dwight Howard.
That's not the problem. That's not the. So it's like that's not the problem. What is the problem here? Like, it seems like these teams are set up to win, and all of a sudden Harden at the last minute, I'm not in it.
I think
I wouldn't want to play like that on my team.
It's because he goes to too many strip clubs.
And I also think the problem. I also think a lot of the problem could be kind of like the Kyrie situation. Like, he's too ball hungry. He wants the ball. When they tell him that the offense isn't going to be around him, he kind of just doesn't really.
He is a black hole on offense. He's like Carmelo.
Yeah.
Right. He's going to score his points. He's going to always score, but he needs.
He's a volume shooter.
He cannot play off ball. He cannot play defense. He cannot play like team-oriented ball, because there's a difference between team-oriented ball and getting a bunch of assists.
Yeah.
Jameson, you made a point. He goes to too many strip clubs. I'm sure you were being funny and cracking a joke, but there's a lot of reality there with a statement like that, because it goes to character. And it seems like it's a character flaw with certain players. I don't want to throw Kyrie Irving in this bucket, but it's very similar type character. You know what I mean? Me. Very talented when they want to be, when they want to show up, but when they don't want to be bothered, when they're frustrated, when they're angry, disappearing at it.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. I like I said, at this point, I mean, it's hard to believe that the field is the problem. I mean, you know, James Harden obviously had there's a focus issue, or there's a, I don't know, personality issue. I mean, there's something going on that's you know, there's something in the way here. right?
I think him and Embiid were a doomed duo to start, in my opinion, because we've seen it now with Embiid 3 times. An all-star guard has not wanted to play back with him. It was Jimmy Butler a couple years ago, Ben Simmons a couple years ago. They didn't want to play with him.
Well, no, I thought they chose Tobias Harris over Jimmy Butler.
They did basically.
They basically did.
Jimmy Butler
didn't really want to resign.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he also got into it with a bunch of. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember the story. It happened twice, but he literally in practice took the third string guys and went out and beat the starters.
I thought that was in Minnesota.
It happened bould both places.
Oh wow!
It happened both. He literally took the third string guys and beat the starters with him and said, that's why I don't want to resign you.
But so maybe I think Embiid and Harden were just not a match made because both of these guys are big personalities.
Yeah.
They like the attention on them, and neither of them have had really real playoff success.
No.
So I think
if you can see the chat here, I don't know if you guys can see in the chat here. Harden's biggest issue is his ego is larger than his skill set and stamina when it counts. I don't disagree with that. I mean, that's a great point.
And
It always seems to be about James Harden, I don't know.
The last time a Harden team made the playoffs was, made a decent run. Is that Chris Paul Harden team that took the Warriors to Game 7?
Yeah. And Harden didn't show up in Game 7.
Well, the Warriors took them to 7. They had a lead.
But they went to 7 games.
Harden also has a history of not showing up in the playoffs.
No, terrible.
I mean, Chris Paul literally gosh dang tore his hamstring and he's out there scoring 30 and Harden's shooting 1 of 20.
Oh, well, remember they missed 26 threes in a row?
Yeah.
That's an NBA record.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Harden
terrible.
had a couple of them.
A couple that didn't hit the rim, I remember.
But listen, I mean, even Joel Embiid. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw. He's erased most of the evidence from his Twitter bio of Philly. I mean, did you guys see this too?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, this happens with every single player. Then they resign and.
I think that's
But don't you think the timing is weird? And we can actually bring that up. I can show you the before and after his Twitter bio. You can see he's got the processing and his location is Philadelphia. And don't get me wrong. I mean, he's still got the process at the top of he's still got his header up there. I mean, that's a Philly thing, But the location isn't Philadelphia anymore. It doesn't say processing. I think a lot of people in Philadelphia are maybe starting to panic a little bit. Like it seems like this whole organization is falling apart from the inside. And I don't know. I guess the question is just what exactly? I mean, what's going on in the city of brotherly love, man? Like what are the Sixers even going to look like at the beginning of the season?
The process failed at this point.
Yeah, the process is just half.
They haven't made it out of the. They haven't made it out of the second round, and they had all those high draft picks, all those assets. They turned those assets into James Harden, and now they still haven't been able to make it out of the second round. They're on their third coach now.
Exactly. Remember.
To all fairness,
it isn't the coach's fault.
Yes, I was going to say that too because I remember they used to blame Brett Brown all the time. It was like, oh, Brett Brown's a bad coach, but then he got him through the process. Then they fired him, and then who did they?
Doc Rivers.
And they brought in Doc Rivers.
3 second round
exits in a row, and it's like, well,
now they have Nick Nurse,
and now they have Nick Nurse, who was a former coach of the year, but then Toronto had it down here. So it's like what more?
I feel like it's clear it isn't the coach.
No.
Yeah.
In all fairness to Joel Embiid, I understand that that's the way young people communicate and express themselves through social media.
Yeah.
That's one form, though. We haven't heard Joel Embiid say verbally, articulate. We haven't heard any of what he's really thinking. We can only read between the lines with the I don't want to say it's subliminal, but definitely sending states. They're sending a message and making a statement of some sort.
Yeah, Jackson, your audio is a little tough, but yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Embiid, he's always been on social media. He's just. I mean, this is the era that we're in. I mean, these guys grew up, as kids with social media being a big part of their lives, and they're going to be on social media. It's going to happen. I know sometimes us older guys want the old school way. We want just play the game and keep your mouth shut, but that's not the way it is anymore, man. It's not realistic.
When Embiid was out, Embiid missed his first 2 seasons with the injuries. He was on social media all the time, and I remember fans were like, "Get off social media. You should be recovering from your injury and stuff like that." So Embiid's been taking hate for his social media antics, quote, because I wouldn't call him antics. Like I don't really know what he does on social media. He just likes to troll people, I feel like.
Yeah.
He's been taking heat for that for his whole career. Like that's something that he's always done. He's liked to mess with the media. It's just what he does.
Listen, you can't please us as fans because we want more and more and more access to these guys, right? And then we get it. We're like, hey, whoa, back off. You know what I mean? there's no happy medium. It seems like we want more and more, and then we want less and less. And it's a cycle at this point. Yeah, but I don't know. I have no idea what Philadelphia's going to look like. I don't know what that roster is going to look like come October. But I want to move on to the NFL a little bit because it's almost football season, guys. I mean, we're winding down the preseason. We got a lot of Brown stuff going on, and I have a question regarding the Browns. If the Browns call Phil Dawson today, would he answer his phone?
Yes,
I would probably. I heard he's been talking to Cade York a little bit, like in camp. He came into camp and talked to him a bit. So
I mean, they got to figure something out there because I mean, you can't afford, especially in a division that's as close as our division is, you can't afford a kicker that's going to miss, those easy 42, 40-yard field goals. Like you can't.
Right. The league average last year was 85%, and Cade York was kicking at 75.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jameson. You said he was at what percent?
Oh, I said the league average last year for kickers for field goal percentage overall was 85%, and Cade York kicked at 75, which every 3 out of 4 is not bad, but you're still 10% under. And then what is that 1 out of the 4 you missing? Is it the game-winning 39-yard field goal and 13-mile-an-hour winds, or is it just a throwaway in like the second quarter against the Texans?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That bears looking
Right,
at.
that's the thing. Cade York is about winning misses kicks, in all honesty.
Yes.
And like Ben said it today, but like I said it yesterday, the division's going to be 2 games. There's already an outstanding kicker with both of them. This is not the season you want to be messing around with your kicker.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not. I mean, you've got cold weather. You've got the wind coming off the lake. I mean, you've got to be pretty steady here. And don't get me wrong; those things could be factors into why he's missing kicks. Maybe he has to adjust to that.
The AFC North is a tough place to kick in general.
Yeah, I mean,
it's bad winds, bad weather all around, and
I mean,
having a good kicker in this division is so important.
I mean,
Like,
huge.
Look at the Ravens, man.
Yeah.
Look at the Ravens.
I just want to say this about Justin Tucker. I saw a crazy stat last year. His kicks were so straight that he would have had a 95% field goal percentage on an Arena Football League goalpost, which are like that long, like that far apart. His kicks were so straight. Like the fact that the Browns, like obviously I'm a Steelers fan, right? And like I don't like people are like, oh, you're a homer. Like I genuinely care for the Browns because I live in the city of Cleveland, right? Or I live near Cleveland, and like obviously I want the Browns to do good, but I'm a Steelers fan, so I'm going to root for the Steelers. But watching the Browns confliction and drafting a kicker in the 4th round, and him not panning out what a 4th rounder should pan out, and you're paying him all that money, it just doesn't add up.
Yeah,
It is rough.
And even look at the Bengals, their Super Bowl run.
Yeah.
All made field goals to get to the Super Bowl.
Like McPherson was elite in the playoffs.
Yes, you need a good kicker in the NFL.
Should the Browns bring in?
The Browns should have brought in,
Yes.
the Browns should have brought in a kicker last year when Cade York was struggling during the season to compete. If Cade York couldn't beat the guy out in practice, how do you expect him to do it in the game?
Well, listen, and I see like the overwhelming thought is like I see a lot of media saying I don't know if we should bring in a kicker because it may it may push him and may hurt his feelings a little bit. It may make him feel like he's not the guy.
It's a business.
When do we start worrying about people's feelings in professional sports? Like you've got to have a guy there that can make the kicks, right?
Yeah,
you've got to have a guy.
Like, okay, Chad, let me ask you this. I got a question for everybody, right? Chris Boswell got hurt last year, right? We went out, we signed Matthew Wright. In college, every kick that was under 45 yards, Matthew Wright was 100%. Would you rather have a guy that can kick 50-yard field goals and make half of them, or a guy that 45 and in, he's going to give you 100%?
I want that 100%.
Definitely that 100%.
Yeah, I was at the preseason game on Friday. Cade York was drilling 67-yarders from midfield during the pregames. And we were all like, this guy has an insane leg on him. If he can just figure it out anyway.
Listen, hey, can I ask you, Nick, was that without a holder by chance?
Yes, it was.
Do you think it's a timing issue with him?
I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know because everyone acts like in warm-ups he's like the greatest kicker they've ever seen, and then he goes out there in the field and can't make anything.
It's a lot easier to kick a ball that you know is going to be held steady with no rush, no defense, nothing to worry about.
Training camp against the Eagles, the Browns have been in Philly playing against the Eagles, preparing for their preseason game. I saw Tony Grossi tweeted Cade York was 7 for 7 on field goals during the scrimmages.
I
It doesn't, but that's all everyone keeps saying. Like, what is it?
Of course it matters, but it's not making the field goal necessary when that time comes. Just how important it is to the team. Go 7 for 7, 60, 70 yards. That's awesome. What's it translate to?
It doesn't mean anything, but
be more upset with that.
It sounds like Stefanski, though, in his quotes during the pressers and stuff, he's like, Cade's doing amazing in practice, is what he said a couple times. It's like, so that's where they get their evaluation, is practice, is training camp and stuff like that. So if he's doing amazing throughout training camp, Stefanski didn't think he needed to bring in another kicker. And then he gets out there in the game and he just can't make it.
I mean, but
I really think there's some sort of confidence issue. Because even in college, he was an amazing kicker. It has to be some sort of confidence issue.
I want to touch on what he said on confidence. And Chad, you mentioned it too, timing, like you said. In warm-ups, there's no rush. The ball is going to be in the exact same spot every single time. You know, like in the NFL, like I was listening to Pat McAfee talk about it. He's like, when you kick through even it's like when the laces are turned towards the kicker, it's almost impossible to make a kick when the laces are towards you because of the way the ball compacts around your foot. It's exactly like timing. If there's a pass rush of dudes that are 6'7" running at you, you got to get the kickoff in time. You got to get the right height, the right trajectory, the right distance, the right speed, everything.
And if he's in his head thinking about all this stuff, it's going to make it really, really tough.
But that's
especially after he keeps missing too.
But those are the characteristics of a professional kicker in the NFL. You're one of the top players in the world.
Yeah, hey, no one says we don't expect him to make them. We just don't know why he's not. We don't know why it doesn't translate from practice to a game.
He needs a haircut. He needs a haircut.
I mean,
Jackson, I'm having a really tough time. Are you guys getting that echo from Jackson? I have a tough echo, man. I'm having a hard time hearing what you're saying. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Maybe we have a little bit of an audio issue. I don't know how to fix that right now, but I want to move on from Cade York and from Phil Dawson. I don't think Phil Dawson's coming out of retirement, but let's talk about another kind of intriguing thing, I think, from the Browns preseason that's kind of gone the other way. Have we seen enough of Dorian Thompson-Robinson to kind of be pretty impressed with his play?
I think he's your second string quarterback going into the year.
He
has to be.
He outplayed Josh Dobbs in that preseason
for sure.
game, undoubtedly. I mean, he was. You can say, he was going against third teamers. Josh Dobbs was going against second teamers. Dorian Thompson-Robinson was also playing with the third team receivers and line and all that. So and he's completed now 80% of his passes through 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like one of those things where, like, if he's the second teamer, there's days that Deshaun Watson has off during the week, he's going to get those first team reps. So if Watson does go down, he's going to have chemistry with the first team. So, I mean, and like Deshaun Watson and DTR aren't like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, yes, obviously Watson was one of the best, but their play styles aren't very different.
No.
They're both mobile. They can both extend the play. They both have great arms.
That's why they drafted him. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like,
that is one thing the Browns have done with their QB room. They've kind of gotten all guys with similar play styles, like Bond, DTR. So if one guy goes down, the offense doesn't. They can run the same offense.
Exactly. Like
I think that's a great idea because last year
you had
wasn't
Brissett.
Like that. Brissett wasn't a mobile guy at all, and then you had all these mobile guys behind him.
Yeah.
The offense would have completely changed. Like the offense did completely change when Watson came in.
The offense was,
and I think that's a big reason that they struggled. Not just because Watson was rusty, but because the whole offense changed. I mean, the whole philosophy changed. You know,
in week 12, you can't do that in week 12. You can't change the whole offense in week 12.
Has to block one way for a guy that stays in the pocket. Then they automatically expect to start blocking for a guy moving around. They're going to look like he's.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough to know where that guy is all the time when you now have a mobile guy back there.
I did want to touch on DTR. The good news is he's going to get behind Watson. He gets to learn from him. He gets to watch Watson. He gets to pretty much get first-hand tutelage from a great quarterback. It's rare that the Browns have that scenario in setup. It's rare that the Browns have when the top guy goes down. That's the derailment for the season. I like how DTR looks. Like he just looks. Something happens to Watson. Browns aren't that in that.
And I want to, going back to what you guys said about, like, Chad, I think you said, hard knowing like where a mobile quarterback is at all times. Mm-hmm. I forget what offensive lineman said it. He said, but the whole pass blocking scheme changes when you have a mobile quarterback He's like, because you don't know if he's going to run. He goes, you can't go downfield because then it's illegal. It's an eligible receiver down the field. Like if he rolls out, he's like, it might have been Joe Thomas. He's like, he's like, if I see the quarterback, rolling out, he goes, I would just stand up and just put my hands up because he goes, I didn't want to get called for a penalty.
Yeah.
Whereas a pocket passer, you can go down the field because he's not running.
Yeah.
And then with a mobile quarterback, you don't know if he's going to take off and run. You don't know if he's going to.
And you've got to reestablish your pocket. Almost, you've got to try to get back around, on the other side of the defensive. It's tough, man. It's tough.
Hey, let me add. I want to add that this of all the rookie quarterbacks that played statistically, DTR was the one to do the best. He was the only one to go over 100 yards passing. He had 90%. He had a touchdown.
Him and Aiden O'Connell for the Raiders.
Aiden O'Connell played well.
Him and Aiden O'Connell of the Raiders have been the two best rookie QBs.
Yeah.
Sean Clifford threw for 230 yards against the Bengals.
Did he?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, they won by like 17.
Did he throw a pick or two too? I believe.
I am not sure, but he did throw 2 touchdowns. And then Stetson Bennett went 17 of 29 against the Chargers. And then like Max Duggan only threw 3 passes.
Yeah. But I mean, with DTR though, I'm tempering my expectations for sure because it is preseason. I've seen a lot of Browns quarterbacks go off in preseason and just be really bad in real life. Deshaun Kaiser, 2017.
Yeah.
So I'm tempering my expectations for sure, and I don't like. If everything goes right for the Browns, Deshaun Watson will be the starting quarterback for the next 5 years.
Exactly.
So we shouldn't have to worry about DTR.
But
it's just nice to have a capable guy there in case.
Yes.
And this is what I was going to say because, obviously, like I said, I'm a Steelers fan. But if Deshaun Watson goes down, obviously I don't want Watson to get hurt, right? Because I want to beat the Browns at full strength, or vice versa. You guys beat us at full strength,
Right.
But if Watson goes out, it's not like you're like, oh well, crap, who's coming in now? Like you have a guy that can play well because he did in the preseason.
Yeah.
You just have to figure out. You just have to get him comfortable and let him play his game.
Yep.
I'd rather have DTR than Mason Rudolph.
Oh, for sure.
I mean,
easily.
For sure. Who wouldn't?
I think any sane human being would rather have DTR over Mason Rudolph.
I'd rather have Josh Dobbs over Mason Rudolph.
I'd take a broom or,
I am really curious, though, what the Browns are going to end up doing with their quarterback room because
I think
they have 4 guys, and
I think Mond's the odd
I do
man
think Mond is the odd man out, but he was a 3rd-round pick just 2 years ago.
Is he a practice squad guy?
They kept him.
Yes.
I feel like you have to. I feel like you have to.
But is there a point to keep 3 on the active roster and a practice?
If you are the Cleveland Browns,
Yeah, I think
most teams don't carry
quarterbacks get hurt when they
carrying
play for
3
us, and quarterbacks get hurt when they play for 2 teams in the NFL.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Ben, to piggyback on your comment, when you said you want the Browns at full strength, I was going to say whatever that is for the Browns.
Yeah.
I don't know what that looks like, but whatever that looks like.
Whenever we play you guys, I want you guys as close to full strength as possible. I don't want to, beat, the Browns with, Kellen Mond at quarterback and some Joe Schmo left tackle.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, I mean, the other 3, the big name starting quarterbacks, the rookie guys, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony, they've all been they've all been named starters, right?
I think everybody
Anthony
except
Richardson and Stroud.
Stroud's on track to be the starter, they said, but he hasn't been named it yet. But
he hasn't been named the starter, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But Young and Anthony Richardson both have, but they said that Stroud's on his way to being the starter.
Yeah, Clayton Tune could be the starter in Arizona. He was actually looking pretty good because I forgot Arizona has Clayton Tune and Colt McCoy, and Kyler Murray is recovering from his ACL.
Yeah, he probably will be back mid-season.
Yeah, so Kyler Murray won't be back till week 8. So we could see another rookie QB in Arizona.
Hey.
And maybe that could lead to a flip.
Disaster.
Or
their roster is.
Yeah,
or
it could, or a blessing in disguise.
It could be a blessing in disguise.
Here's something interesting too. Clayton Tune was picked 1 pick before Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So it'll be if Dorian Thompson-Robinson goes on to have a pretty good career, people might talk about that, and Clayton Tune doesn't, or if one of the other.
Yeah,
right.
That could be something. When you're drafted 1 pick after another guy at the same position, that's always something people like to talk
about. We may find out a lot about Kyler Murray's future here too coming up. With whatever happens. But let's move on. I want to move on to a different position. We talked a couple weeks ago about the slide of the importance of the running back position in the NFL. But a couple pretty big names have signed recently. We had Dalvin Cook to the Jets. I'm sorry, for a incentive-laden contract up to $8.6 million. And then you've got Ezekiel Elliott also signed with the Patriots for up to, I think his contract is up to $6 million in incentives.
Yeah, like
a couple guys on incentive-laden contracts for a couple different reasons. We don't necessarily have to get into that, but I just want to ask you guys real quick. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but who gets the better deal at the end of the year when we go back and look at these? Who gets the better deal here, the Jets or the Patriots?
I think the Jets.
Jets. I don't think Zeke moves the needle for me with the Patriots at all at this point in his career.
Like I said, I think Zeke's going to have a resurgence here and have 500 yards and 2 touchdowns.
I see Jameson has something to say, man.
Alleged Ohio State fans here. Anyways, as I was saying, I think this moves the needle big for the Patriots because obviously they're the 4th team in the NFC East. Everyone is unanimously agreeing that they are the 4th team behind the Dolphins, Bills, and the Jets. I think it moves the needle big because not only does this help the running game that they have because they just lost James White and I believe Rex Burkhead, but it also helps Ramondre Stevenson because he's going to be their number 1 back, and they're basically getting Zeke to take the load off of Ramondre because I think he almost got somewhere around 300 touches last year, I believe, or like north of 280, and they just got him, so they probably want to preserve that. I mean, Dalvin Cook's a great pickup for the Jets. It's just really they only signed him for a year because Breece Hall's coming off the torn ACL. But this definitely helps the Patriots. They get a certified red zone scoring running back. He is in the top 3 running backs in scoring in the red zone within the 10-yard line in the last 3 years. So he's clearly still useful. Yeah. He can catch the ball solidly. He can be a solid fullback. Yeah, he's a good blocker, except when he's going against Nick Bosa and the 49ers. But we're not going to talk about that, all right? But I think it's a great pickup for the Patriots.
That's expected, though. I mean, who can block Nick Bosa? I mean,
I don't think 28-year-old Ezekiel Elliott makes the Patriots better than the Dolphins, Jets, or Bills. I just don't think that.
Well, Nick, maybe not as he stands now, but don't count out 2 things. Listen, we've seen the Patriots do this before. We've seen them sign, reclamation projects at running back and turn them into something pretty special. I mean, Corey Dillon comes to mind.
Yes, the Corey Dillon trade. That is literally what I was comparing this to the other day.
Yeah. When you said it the other day, it rang that bell for me. And then don't count out Zeke's heart, man. I mean, don't you think he might come into this season with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder now? Like he's been thrown to the side by the Cowboys, essentially.
I love to see I really do. But to me, those Patriots teams had Tom Brady on them. These Patriots teams have Mac Jones.
Okay.
Matt Gritty Jones. You can't forget Bailey Zapp.
Matt Gritty Jones. The Patriots' overall offense and O-line, their O-line isn't great right now either, can't compete with that of the Bills, Jets, or Dolphins right now. Yeah. I mean, they have a better O-line than the Dolphins, but Dolphins' skill positions, they have 3 receivers. They have Tyreek, they have Jalen Waddle, and Tua. Their passing offense way more explosive than the Patriots is. I just don't think the Patriots can compete with these other teams right now. I think they're due for a last place finish no matter what.
The defense.
Their defense is good, but so is the Jets.
And injuries are always a possibility.
Yeah.
So how close do you think the Patriots get to 500? Are they 7-10, 8-9? I mean, what do you think they finish?
They're a 7-10 team for me.
Yeah, it feels like that to me. That's why I said that. It feels like that.
I think they're right around 500 because defense can only take you so far. I mean, we've seen it from Pittsburgh over the last couple of years. Defense can only take you so far. You need a capable offense to score.
You have to score.
They won 7 games with Cam Newton, so just on that, they're going to go 9-8, and they're going to go above 500, and they might get the 7th seed. That's just my opinion.
Who do you think's coming in last in the East?
You know what? I think it is shockingly going to be a down year for Buffalo.
Buffalo in last. With Josh, that's crazy to me.
We talked about this before with Buffalo. It feels like they're hitting the end of their window.
Yeah, I mean, me and Chad were texting about this. Buffalo has had 4 or 5 years to change and diversify their offense. It's the same exact offense. Yeah. Hey, Stephon Diggs, run deep. Gabriel Davis, run deep. I'm gonna chuck you the ball. Okay, we need a 3rd and 3 run. Wait, who's our running back? Where'd he go? Who is it?
It's not getting you by Kansas City. It's not getting you to the Super Bowl. It's not working.
No, I agree with that. I don't think the Bills will be. I don't think the Bills can beat the Chiefs or Bengals. Sorry, but to me, when you have Josh Allen, when you have Stephon Diggs, and you have a really good defense, that gives you a floor, in my opinion, of at least playoffs. 10 wins.
Okay.
They might be bounced first round this year. I think they could be. Easily.
That's just my hot take, Bills.
But to me, the Bills.
I like it.
They have a floor. They have a really high floor with the Bills.
Okay. But not a super high ceiling.
Yes, I agree.
Well, listen, that's fine. Okay, so I think we all kind of agree. Maybe the Jets will get the better deal here. But I don't want to count Zeke out, man. Like you said, alleged Ohio State fans, man. We're so quick to give up on our guys, aren't we? Remember how fast everybody turned on JT Barrett when he was still winning football games? Like, what was that about?
I never did.
Yeah, good for you, man.
Or Cardell.
Yeah, Cardell Jones too, man. I mean, come on.
The Jets probably have the better of the situation of the two teams. I think this helps the offense, but like I was saying earlier, the offensive line is such a problem with the Jets.
Yeah.
All these new acquisitions, running backs, quarterbacks, it's great. But if there's no offensive line, if the offensive line's not changing the culture, I mean, the coach just went off last night about the offensive line on Hard Knocks. And it seems pretty obvious at this point that the Jets, they're the talk of the town, but they're going to have to show and prove because with no offensive line, nothing else is going to work.
Yeah.
As far as Zeke Elliott goes with the Patriots, I like it. I feel like you guys mentioned Corey Dillon. Randy Moss came to mind. Darrelle Revis came to mind. Guys nobody wanted. They end up in New England. They have phenomenal seasons. I don't see why this would be any different for Ezekiel Elliott.
Okay.
It's a matter of staying healthy, and like Jameson said, it's going to be about sharing the load. And that's the other thing I like about the Jets situation. Breece Hall doesn't have to take all the touches this year. He's going to definitely be sharing the load at the end of the season.
Yeah.
So hopefully he's team-oriented and doesn't feel threatened by the acquisition of Cook.
Oh, I think anytime you can keep your legs fresh and be healthy for the playoffs, I don't think you feel too threatened. I mean, it's Dalvin Cook, so I mean, he's got the chance to be that RB1. So who knows, man? Who knows?
You think that Zeke
he won't be up. The problem is he won't have that productivity to fall back on and say, "Look at my numbers."
Yeah.
But he'll be healthier. He'll be in better condition.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Nick?
Zeke can be an 1,000-yard rusher this year. Like, do you think he takes RB1 over Ramondre?
I think they can both get it. They're going to be a run-heavy offense, if you ask me.
I mean,
Mac Jones isn't throwing for 5,000 yards.
No.
I mean,
I just don't think there's any way he
4,000.
overtakes Ramondre now. Ramondre's their guy, and he's good. Ramondre's really good. I don't think there's any way he overtakes Ramondre.
I want to touch on something Jack said about the Jets not having a great offensive line. And yes, obviously you need a good offensive line to be a successful running team. But the Bengals made the Super Bowl with the worst offensive line in the NFL, and Joe Mixon still averaged over 100 yards a game.
Yeah.
So you don't need a great offensive line to run. And with a quarterback like Rodgers who's smart and can change the play and knows when to audible and knows what to audible to, gets the ball out quick, you can make a good running game with a bad offensive line.
Ben, that's a great point.
A great offensive line helps, but
you have to have the right personnel.
Yeah, you have to have the right personnel. The Bengals made the Super Bowl.
Well, listen, but something you said, you have to have the right personnel, not necessarily the best personnel. You just have to have the 5 guys that work best together, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the Bengals didn't have that. I mean, Joe Mixon still averaged over 100 yards a game and made the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So
the Jets line isn't terrible. I mean, they got a line there.
If Becton can stay healthy, that would change their whole a lot.
If the Jets' offensive line can stay healthy, they have a good offensive line. It's just that they haven't been able to stay healthy, and that's what's hurt the Jets. They have Mekhi Becton. They have that one like Elijah Vera Tucker guy who's supposed to be really, really good.
Out of USC, he's supposed to play all 5
and
positions.
He's a good player.
And if those guys can stay healthy, even if you're a middle of the pack offensive line, the Jets can make some noise and make it run. You don't need a great offensive line.
Defense is so good.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
So
I think they have the defense in that division.
If Aaron Rodgers is on his back too much, he's going to have a problem with that offensive line. He's going to be telling those guys either fall in line or get out. This is Aaron Rodgers we're talking about at quarterback. That's who these guys are blocking for. Not his name from last year's, the Zach dude.
They need Becton to stay healthy.
I actually said something else. Joe Burrow had the most sacks in the NFL, and again, they made the Super Bowl.
Fair. Okay. That's fair. I think we need to move on. I think we need to move on. Let's just move on from the NFL in general. I want to can we go back to school? You guys want to go back to school?
I'm leaving. See you later. Kidding.
Come on, man. C's get degrees. We'll be fine. We don't have to put in that much effort. I didn't say that. C's don't get degrees. Listen, if my kids watch this show, A's get degrees. Okay, don't listen.
C's do get degrees. You're okay.
They do get degrees, but that's not what we're shooting for here. We're shooting for an A+.
Yeah. Honestly, of course.
Listen, I want to go back to school. What is happening? What's the NCAA doing with Jim Harbaugh? What are they doing with this investigation? Do we know?
I think
we never know.
Are they trying to give a bigger punishment or a lesser punishment?
That's what we don't know. I was
Don't
talking about this with my dad. Either the NCAA thinks they can find more evidence on Jim Harbaugh and get a bigger suspension, or they realize that they don't have enough evidence to give him the suspension they wanted, so they had to delay it to figure out how long they can suspend him for.
But
Or it's
Michigan-
somewhere in the middle of that. We don't know.
Michigan was the ones that said, "Hey, what do you guys think of 4 games? Is that cool?" It's like they let Michigan come up with their own punishment, and the NCAA denied it. But I'm just wondering, how does that process work? I didn't even know you get to pick your own punishment.
Well, and then he wasn't. Like I said, he was suspended for 4 games, and now he's not. Pending more investigation.
It's almost like Harbaugh said, "I tell you what, I'll suspend myself for 4 games." The NCAA said, "No, that's not good enough."
Well, but at first they said okay.
Yeah,
Right.
They in theory agreed to it, right? But then,
like I said, I think the NCAA thinks they can find more evidence.
yeah.
And I think Jim Harbaugh is saying, no, you can't. Like, he's kind of going back at Chad, like you said on screen, like Jim Harbaugh has never been afraid to go at the NCAA. And I think this is one of those situations where he's like, the NCAA is like, hey, we can find more evidence on you. You're going to be suspended for a full year. And Jim Harbaugh's like, try me. No, you can't. Like, come at me. Like,
And it feels very much like a petty little argument. Like the NCAA, like, okay, so what I've heard is that Harbaugh allegedly has refused to sign a part of the agreement that states that he's agreeing that he was dishonest, in the initial part of the investigation. He won't agree to that. Which, I mean, I don't blame him. Like, I'm not going to sign something that says I was dishonest. Pete Rose signed the thing that said he gambled on baseball. Look where he is now. I mean, I'm not signing that.
yeah.
So that's fine. That's one thing. But it feels like the NCAA just had this knee-jerk reaction. Like, well, if you're not going to agree to all of our terms, we're going to bury you. And I don't know if that's what it is. Or like you said, Ben, maybe they realize they don't have anything. And if he's not going to agree that he was dishonest about this, they can't suspend him for 4 games because what's the precedent? Here's another thing. Hold on. Here's another thing with precedent with the NCAA. The hell is the precedent with the NCAA? What are they doing? I mean, if we can, this is a deep dive for another show. But the committee on infractions, whatever they do, the infractions never match up with the penalties. They're never the same.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Doesn't there need to be a uniform kind of a system where we know, like, if I'm a coach and I do this, and this, I'm getting suspended for this many games. We're losing this many scholarships. It's so ambiguous. I have no idea what the NCAA is doing. I don't know.
It depends a lot with the universities. Depending how much the university matters to the NCAA and how much it makes them money, how much money they make the NCAA matters so much to them. It's clear. There's a reason they hit SMU as hard as they did, because they probably didn't know, because they knew SMU wasn't that big of a brand to the point where they're making them all this money. They would not give Alabama anywhere, like, say Alabama was doing stuff that they were doing, they would not give Alabama the death penalty.
Nick Saban's not getting the death penalty right now.
No.
They're not shutting Alabama down for 2 years.
Absolutely.
Do you guys remember when Penn State got in that trouble about a decade ago?
Yep.
And they about threw the axe at them for a while?
Mm-hmm.
Penn State was a top program, tons of wins, prestigious coach. Man, they looked at them totally different after that Sandusky.
They were. That's a different situation. That's not
totally
NCAA
different.
Violations.
I think, yeah, when you're talking about recruiting violations versus like horrible legal trouble, I think we're talking about 2 different things. But I see your point. I mean, you have a valid point.
But my point was, it was Penn State, and they didn't take it like, oh, it's Penn State, we got to fall back. My point was, sometimes you can be a big shot and still end up in the line of fire with the NCAA.
I think when the action is so egregious, though, I think that's the point. I think when the action is so egregious, I mean, the NCAA.
They had if they didn't do anything, that would have been the worst look ever.
I mean, I think the biggest trouble I've seen one of like the big teams get in was
USC, maybe
USC or the Ohio State.
Ohio State 1 year.
Yeah,
we got 1 year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
12-0.
Like it was before NIL deals. Players are making money off selling tattoos in their gold pants, and we got a 1 year bowl ban.
And they let us choose: do we want the bowl ban in 11 or 12? They let us choose that for 12 too.
Yeah.
So they even let them choose what year they're banned.
You can't let teams choose, because then teams are going to look at the roster and, okay, we're losing this guy, this guy, and this guy, but we're bringing in this 5-star, this 5-star, and this 5-star. Yeah, we're making the national championship next year. We'll choose this year. Thank you.
The NCAA needs a guy
you need a set standard. You have to have one, or else teams are going to keep abusing it.
They don't want to set standards because everybody has a different value. To have a set standard means you got to look at Alabama the same way you look at Virginia Commonwealth. And that's not what they want to do. They got to look at certain teams based on their brand, their value, their history,
Yeah.
their tradition.
Yeah, they're not going to hesitate to shut the little guy down and make it. Yeah.
The money you bring in, like if you're my top dealer, if you're my top money guy, I'm probably penalizing you the least. I'm probably looking for ways to keep you from getting in trouble.
Listen, to add some clarity, I just want to add some clarity to this situation. There is a quote from NCAA Vice President Derek Crawford. And I just want to throw that up, and we'll kind of look at it because I thought he made an interesting mention in here. It's kind of a long quote, but the Michigan infractions case is related to impermissible on and off-campus recruiting during the COVID-19 dead period and impermissible coaching activities. Here's the important part. He specifically mentions not a cheeseburger. Okay. So either this is one of two things to me, right? This is either it's a PR move, like they're getting slammed, right, on social media for I don't know, suspending Jim Harbaugh over buying a kid a cheeseburger, which if that's the case, rightfully so. Okay. But it seems to be about maybe like some coaching during a dead period. Supposedly they let a video workout with a couple of recruits. Okay. I mean, whatever. Is that cheating? I mean, come on. Like,
I guarantee you every college football team in some way is doing some sort of way to bend the rules in terms of recruiting. Okay, every single big organization is. It's just whether you get caught.
Talking about that,
trying.
Yeah. Talking about what, like Nick said, teams, like bending the rules, to, like train recruits. Mm-hmm. I've heard of this before, and I forget what coach said it, but he said, it was an old coach that used to work for under Urban Meyer at Ohio State. He says during the offseason, he goes, players are allowed to reach out and ask for videos or ask for what drills, hey, what drills can I do? What can I work on, stuff like that. But they can't physically coach the player because then that's when, the bribes could happen or stuff like that. But players are allowed to reach out and say, they can reach out to as many coaches they want to say, hey, what do I need to come to your program? What do I need to get better on? What do I need to get faster at? But they can't physically coach them.
But I think this is where you identify, upper class leaders, right? Like you have a leadership group of upperclassmen that's responsible for taking on that responsibility. When these freshmen, when these recruits, whatever they are, when they reach out, you have your 5 or 6. They don't have to be team captains, but just the guys who've been there the longest in the off season. I don't know. I mean, I think you've got a plan for that.
I mean, yeah. And talking about if we're talking about, does the NCAA need to set a precedent? I think at some point, there just needs to be a general outline. It doesn't have to be the same punishment for everybody, but you just need a general outline. Yeah. Because that adds more structure to suspensions, punishments, what bans you give teams.
It can be a little bit of a sliding scale. It can be a little bit of a sliding scale.
Yeah. The problem with that is, though, the NCAA can't be as rogue as they like to be. If you put something set in place that the public can see and all the kids know before they even apply for college, that's taking power away from the NCAA. They're not looking to give power. I don't think they're about clarity. I think it's about a rogue organization that moves as such depending on who the culprit is and what the charges are.
I really don't ever get a clear. The NCAA will never really do what's right, in my opinion. They are an organization. They're a greedy organization. The NCAA is a greedy organization. That's what they are, and that's how they always will be, I feel like.
It's about power and control.
Listen, so I've told you guys the story about the bagel and the cream cheese, right? One's a snack, one's a meal, one's permissible, one's not. If Jim Harbaugh had bought the recruit a hamburger with no cheese, would we be okay? It's a valid question worth asking, I think.
We don't know.
Let's go try it.
Let's do it.
So come on, ref, try it.
I'm going to go hang out in Columbus and buy all the recruits hamburgers and see if we're fine.
If you're feeding someone because they're hungry, that should never be wrong in any form or medium. That's just my personal opinion.
Never. And it could be for any reason. The kid, like I said,
if somebody's hungry and they don't have a way to feed themselves and I have a way to help feed them, I'm doing the human thing.
Yeah. And oftentimes with the NCAA, the human thing ends up being a violation.
Yep.
Make it make sense.
Chad, I want to touch on what you said. It's not illegal if the players do it, but why is it illegal if the coach does it? So at that point, if I'm trying to get a recruit, Why not have your star player, your team captain, go take the guy out for dinner?
It's
go take him out for
also
lunch.
illegal if boosters or alumni do it. Too.
Yes. To a certain point now with NIL. Yeah, to a certain point, it's still illegal. But you can funnel that money to the players through NIL deals, and they can do it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You were just skipping a step. The whole thing is so ridiculous, really. It doesn't make sense. The NCAA someone needs to like come in, tear the NCAA down piece by piece, and build it back up into an organization that makes sense.
Actually, okay. Well, I'll say this: I don't think they need to set an outline for the bans and punishments. They need to set an outline on what's illegally recruiting, what's not.
Yeah.
What you can do, what you can't do. Because then that sets a clarity for teams on what can coaches do in the offseason, what can't they do? What can they give recruits, what can't they give recruits?
And listen, it can be a sliding scale. There's always going to be some ambiguity and okay, this team did this team did that. They're kind of the same, but they're a little bit different. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't have to be a set thing. It can be a sliding scale, but there needs to be some outline, like you said, Ben.
But here's what you're going to always have, regardless of your system and scale. You're always going to have the Nick Sabans. You're always going to have the Kirby Smarts. Mm-hmm. But then you're also going to have the Harbaughs and the Days. And what I'm saying is some of these coaches, it's this much of a margin of getting a guy. Yep. These guys are going to bend. They're going to try to do what they can to get this kid. You know what I mean? It's like you can put things in place. But at the end of the day, it's about who can get the best recruits, who can build the squad the best. And if you're second with another school, especially a rival, don't you think Nick Saban and Kirby Smart, it's a big deal if a kid's on the border. It's a really big deal if a kid is right there on the border between where should I go. I easily see somebody trying to pull some strings.
Yeah, and we'll move on after this, but because like you said, at the end of the day, it's a game, yes, but millions of dollars and hundreds and thousands of people's jobs are on the line. I mean, it's important.
Right.
It's important to get the right players.
Is it fair to call it a game when there's so much at stake?
I don't know.
Nick, what were you going to say?
If you really think about it, too, what big-time college football program has never gotten in trouble with the NCAA? Every single, maybe Georgia, I don't know if Georgia has, but pretty much every single Ohio has. Bama did in the 90s. USC did with Pete Carroll. Every school is cheating in some way. You just don't know how.
Yeah.
If you don't get caught, you don't have to worry about it.
Nick, you might say every single school is riding the lightning, right?
Yes.
They're riding the lightning. Hey, listen, real quick, it's almost time to get out of here already. I can't believe it. But I do just kind of want to talk about, I was going to ask if there's any way to anticipate what the final decision is going to be from the NCAA, but I think we know there's not. There's no way. So let's talk about something that's actually kind of fun with college football. Hey, man, the preseason AP poll is out, right? Does it matter? No. But is it fun to look at and decipher and kind of sift through? Yeah. I mean, it's fun, right? I just want to we can put the graphic up. Let's take a look at just the top 10 teams. We'll look at 1 through 10. Obviously, no surprise at the top. I mean, Georgia should be number 1 until somebody knocks them off. Really, not many surprises in there at all. I think Washington at 10 was kind of cool to see. Don't you guys think?
And I just want to say something. Brian, can you bring that graphic back up really quick? I just want to say, Washington coming to the Big Ten. You got South Carolina. You got USC coming to the Big Ten. In that graphic, I see 4 Big Ten teams or 5 Big Ten teams in the top 10.
Yeah.
I mean, then you add Oregon in there. You had UCLA. Well, I mean, UCLA isn't ranked, but Oregon's ranked. You got all these Big Ten teams ranked. I mean, talking about a tough conference, it just got a whole lot tougher.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it. I don't know if we talked about it last show or not, but if you lose to one of these top teams, the loss isn't going to mean as much because it's a team that's in your division, it's a team that's in your conference, they're ranked. It's not going to mean as much. Especially going to a 12-team playoff. Exactly.
But guess what?
Yeah.
That's why when we opened the segment and we said it kind of doesn't matter, I think that's where the polls do come to play, and the polls do matter because it kind of sets the tone for what we should expect. For example, Georgia's number 1, LSU number 2. If LSU beats Georgia, that's legit. It's like we can see LSU's not a fluke. We can see LSU supposed to be there. They're in the top 5 school in the country. Yeah. So I'm really thinking that this year the polls do matter, and based on what you said, that's going to be a lot of the top 10 in years to come.
I do think the polls definitely matter because if you start as number one, you have a kind of a leash. I feel like because when you start high, you're not gonna you're naturally starting already in the top four. You have an advantage over the teams that don't start already in the top four. Because if you just don't lose, you're gonna make it.
Yeah, and I want to touch on what you said too because kind of like you said, like we've seen in the past, like Ohio State be number one and they lose and they only fall to 2. It's like I guess it matters if you lose at 1 seed if it's to an unranked team or a ranked team depending on where they're at in the standings. Like if you lose,
Ohio State lost to Purdue and that was their only loss, but because it was Purdue, and that was enough to knock them out of the playoffs.
Yeah,
their own right.
And it's kind of like the whole LSU versus Bama game last year. Like LSU was ranked in the top 4. They lost to I think it was LSU was ranked 9th or something like that, and it knocked Bama out. Where if it would have been a 2 versus 5, Bama probably falls to 4. Or probably falls to 5, and LSU probably goes to 4.
Yeah, possibly. So maybe it does matter. But listen, I want to do something a little bit different because like I said, it's almost time to get out of here already. I was going to ask you guys for your playoff teams. I want to do something a little bit different. I just want to switch it up on you. Give me one dark horse kind of a team that maybe isn't in that top 2 or 3 teams, whatever. Not Michigan, not Ohio State, not Georgia. But somebody in that top 10. We can look at that graphic again of that top 10. Give me your one kind of, and I know there's no real dark horses in the top 10, but I mean, you look at a team like Penn State who starts every year in the top 10 and finishes 9-3 or 10-2, and they're always, there, but they're never really in the conversation to get into the playoffs, right? They always kind of fall off. Do you see a team there in that group that you could that you would say maybe it would be a surprise if they win it all, but you think maybe has the chops to do it?
Yeah.
I like Florida State from that group, but I actually would go a little bit deeper. I would say USC.
Okay. Well, they both have really good starting quarterbacks returning. I mean, that's the thing,
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. As far as dark horse
Give me
goes,
Tulane. Give me Tulane.
I was gonna say, actually, he took one of my 2. Give me Tulane. They're number 24. They only have to play number 22 Ole Miss. And they have over 70% of their team returning from last year. So if they go 12-0, and let's say the field is just absolutely a wreck this year in shambles, they could sneak into the playoff. That'd be nice. I think Kansas State getting Will Howard back at quarterback is pretty good. And they're starting off at 16, and they're in the Big 12, which is kind of dwindling. So I think Kansas State can make a run. Those are my 2 teams.
For me, it's I don't like this team, so it's tough to say it, but I really think Clemson, because the problem for them the last couple of years has been quarterback.
Inconsistent.
And now they have a 5-star in Cade Klubnik in there. If he can be better than DJ Uiagalelei.
He looked so different. I mean, he looked good.
He looked really good at the end of last year. Cade Klubnik
he was
really
legit.
Good. He made Clemson look like the Clemson that was in the playoff playing against Ohio State and Bama every year. Because Clemson was in the playoff every single year for about 5 years straight. I think Clemson can get back to that if they get the right quarterback.
I just want to touch on what
they always have a good defense.
Yeah, I just want to touch on what Nick said. About them having a good quarterback. If you look at every year Clemson has gone far and been successful in the college football playoff era, what kind of quarterback have they had? A mobile quarterback that can air the ball out. Only time they didn't with DJ Uiagalelei, they didn't do well. They had Watson. They had
Taj Boyd.
They also had Kelly Bryant that one year. They had Trevor Lawrence.
Sometimes I forget about the Taj Boyd era. I mean, that was when Clemson.
Sammy Watkins. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, Chad. What's your dark horse team?
Listen, I like Florida State a lot. I really like Jordan Travis coming back. 24 touchdowns last year, 5 interceptions, over 3,000 yards. He's a little bit older. He's got the experience, obviously. I like that. I like a quarterback that can steady a team, and Florida State's got plenty coming back. I don't know if this team's ever really a dark horse. I mean, I like Bama, but the thing about Bama that I'm a little concerned with is just depth on the offensive line. If you look at their projected team, they've got 2 true freshmen at each tackle position. At the 2 dips, backup tackles are true freshmen. That can go horribly wrong. If you've got guys playing out of necessity and they don't know what they're doing or they can't figure it out quick enough, that can go pretty bad. They've also got a true freshman in the defensive backfield, I think, listed as a starter. I think they have Caleb Downs listed as a starter at free safety. And again,
Bama, if you're a 5-star, if you're starting as a true freshman, you're probably pretty good.
He's probably pretty good, no doubt. But
Unless
sometimes
it's a
it's
necessity.
experience for me. I mean, you know, when these guys haven't seen college play, it can be a shock. I mean, how fast and how strong guys can be.
I'm gonna tell you like this, Chad. Kind of like what Nick was saying. 95% of the schools in the country, if you have freshmen at those positions, you're gonna have probably problems. Alabama, they're one of those schools, man. It's like even on a bad day, they kick ass.
Yeah. And that's why I like him for the playoffs. I just like, you know, my concern is that offensive line depth. I think that's a real concern.
I agree with you, Chad, offensive line, but I also think quarterback. I mean, we don't know who their starter's going to be.
I think it'll be Milroe. I think it'll be Milroe.
He struggled last year, though.
Did not look good.
He struggled. Only thing he was good at was running the football.
Well, he's got some time to develop. I mean, maybe with an offseason of being the guy.
And I feel like the reason they brought in these other quarterbacks is because they kind of realized Milroe. I feel like they kind of realized he's not.
Dude,
it would not shock me if Nick Saban does what he did with Jalen Hurts and Tagovailoa. He'll start like the first 4 game out of conference games, and he'll split reps. And then after that, the real starter will be determined for SEC play.
When you have 2 quarterbacks, you have 0 quarterbacks.
3.
I
they have a
watched
3-way competition.
I watched the game.
Was that -1?
You have 3 quarterbacks, you have -1 quarterback.
Come on, ref math. That's
Jalen Milroe went to attempt a screen pass from me to like the TV and overthrew the guy by like 14 feet.
That's pretty
like it was literally measured. Overthrew him by like 14 feet.
So we know he's got some energy. He's excited. That's okay.
You saw Buckner play against Ohio State last year, right?
No.
Who was the start? No, I swear Buckner started that week 1 versus Ohio State last year, didn't he?
For Notre Dame?
Yeah.
No, Buckner came in.
It wasn't Ian Book either. Ian Book was on the Saints. It was.
I thought it was Buckner that started last year.
Oh my God!
It was the guy that started because then Buckner came in again later in the season.
No, Buckner got hurt. Was out for the year. I thought because Buckner at Notre Dame. I saw a guy that's a game manager.
Yes.
I saw him as a.
It was Joe Montana that started.
When I saw him, he looked like more of a game manager.
It was Ron Paulus.
But to me, Buckner looked like more of a game manager. So maybe if Bama goes with him, they go back to their.
I don't even know who that is.
Days.
It was Buckner.
I knew it was Buckner.
It was Buckner.
But he maybe if they go with him, they go back to that game manager days, like the AJ McCarron days that they used to have, and
game
maybe
manager?
that could be what works for them.
Play some really good defense.
But to me, I don't know if they have that superstar QB that we've seen them have the last couple of years.
Yeah. We know they're going to have a good running game if the offensive line healthy. So.
They did.
Oh, yeah,
These guys evolve yet. We haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it could be.
By the time it gets snowy outside, we won't see it.
Mm-hmm. I can see.
Well, listen, guys, it's already time to get out of here. I think we've proven today with our math that, you know, C's get degrees, and maybe that's the best we can hope for. I don't know. 3 quarterbacks is -1. I don't know what that means, but maybe it's true.
That's a T-shirt. That is a T-shirt.
Yeah, it sounds like
3
a T-shirt.
quarterbacks is -1 quarterbacks.
I love it, man. I love it. Hey, listen, thanks so much for watching, guys. Remember to like, subscribe, share the show. You know, comment. Let us know what we're doing wrong. Let us know what we're doing right if there's anything. And please don't report us again. That's all. That's all I got. Thanks, guys. We appreciate it.
Peace.
See you next week.
Peace.